I was able to watch this movie last week, and it's just so wildly original and such an interesting film. And I was curious, what was the elevator pitch like for this movie?
I don't know if I ever did an elevator pitch. It was more like a bus kind of pitch, just getting on a London bus saying, does anyone want this? 6 years later, someone allowed me to make the film. It's kind of the idea. I love characters that have some sort of unusual condition that makes them unusual. And I loved the idea of a stalker character. But I was like, what if you had a stalker character that stalked someone through time? And that was the elevator pitch, really, of kind of imagine if that person just kept coming back. Like, even if they died, they kept coming back. And it tickled me, the idea of like lots of different time periods, because I'm greedy and I just wanted it to be a pick and mix of my favorite things in a film, and someone let me do it.
Well, I was going to say, how did you select the time periods that we travel through over the course of the movie?
I literally thought, what costumes would I look good in, basically. I mean, I joke, but it is a little bit that. I mean, it's about romance with a capital R, so I thought about what are romantic periods that we have like real film trope ideas about. Like, we don't actually know the reality of those periods. We know more about the films that were made. So when you think of 18th century, you think of Barry Lyndon, and I was just thinking my favorite films, really, my favorite eras, and the things that I get real pleasure from being in those worlds. And I was like, I want to do a mass ball. I mean, really, there's a lot of hedonism within the film. I was just a bit like, there's been a pandemic. I may never get to make another film. I've had 2 children. I just kind of was like, if I'm going to make a film, I want it to be filled with the things that I love. So I didn't take any of that for granted. I was like, it's going to be filled with fun stuff.
Well, and throughout these, you are the object of desire, being stalked throughout time.
He is, look at him.
Apparently.
So I'm curious, did you look at playing this as one character or a chance to play multiple characters throughout?
I think to have the connection and the chemistry between us, it was quite vital to kind of hold on to the soul of the person through different time periods. So, we never really gave him an identifiable name, It's just this guy through time, apart from when you meet him in the 80s as Alex. And I just felt like he needed to feel like somebody that was lost in that time, but still the same person. So it's almost like being brainwashed every time, in each different period. It's like, this is all very familiar, but I'm not sure who this person is. But there's something like we've met before. So there was always that edge of like trying to keep their relationship connected, but very fuzzy, if that makes sense.
What was your favorite period to wear the costumes in?
I mean, the 80s is always fun, and I got to have a lot of fun with that. And there was a lot of my personal things that I would love to do in a movie in that. And I've done a lot of period stuff in the past, so it's always good for me to just tap back into that.
I mean, there was the really weird owl thing. Like, literally, there's a line in the film that's about an owl, I want to fly like an owl through the night. And Nyrin actually has a tattoo of a flying owl.
Yeah.
So it was like you were fated to play the role.
Something happened.
It was like you recognised the things that were enjoyable about the different periods and wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Could you remember the owl from a different life, maybe?
Yeah. I think it must be trapped within labyrinths or something like that.
It seemed like you were also having some fun, poking fun at genre conventions. And I was just curious. I know you've worked with Kate Dickie before, but including her in that first time period we're in, and where there's a witchcraft scene, was that kind of a wink to her being in the movie The Witch?
Kate just looks amazing if you put her in a period thing, and like I'm always just like desperate to work with her in any capacity, but she just looks particularly great in that era. She just sells that scene, basically. I don't think it was really a conscious thing. It was more like, I love folk horror. That was kind of my folk horror section of the film, and she just came along and made it even better. So I just love working with her. But then, she also plays a therapist. That was the joy of like, I love it when you have people popping up again, like in Wizard of Oz or something. And so I was like, I wanted to see her as a therapist, like in in the 80s, because I'd just never seen her play that role. So that was the joy of it, of like, okay, you might expect to see this actor playing this part, but you won't have seen them play this part. And I find that exciting as an actor. And I think everybody that joined the film, they were also excited about that idea.
Well, speaking of castmates, Nick Frost is sublime in this, revolting but sublimely so. And I was curious if you saw this as possibly a spiritual successor to your work with him on Hot Fuzz.
That character in Hot Fuzz would have taken a very dark twist, wouldn't he? If, like, maybe he got fired as a policeman and ended up, becoming this slightly very intimidating character. I mean, I had no idea that if Nick was going to say yes, because this was such a departure from how he's usually shown on, he's cuddly. Most of the roles he plays, he's sweet, And so I was like, will he want to play something so dark? And he's just so amazing in the role and really embraced it and kind of knew instinctively what it needed to be, because he drives so much of the narrative, that character, how sort of brutish he is, really. And I just think he's incredible.
The specificity of the people both in front and behind the camera, this feels like a very British film, a very British point of view. So what's it like being able to, as British filmmakers, being able to take that to an American or international festival like South by Southwest?
I mean, it's terrifying, because like any comedy, you're like, how is it going to translate? But actually, like, the British comedies that I've done have always really translated to American audience, and you don't know why. It's really fascinating to watch the audience. I love sitting in those early screenings, because every different country you're in, the laughs are going to be in different places. You still get them, but they're bigger in different places, and sometimes you don't know why. You have no idea, but it'll be some cultural complexity. But I mean, what I try and do is you take something, that is an eternal theme, which is love, which is, a romance, but then you try and put a twist on it and hope that it does translate. It's a human story, essentially, with a sort of modern twist. So you just hope people get the human aspect of it. And it's a fantasy as well. It's someone's fantasy.
And it's natural humour. It comes out of awkward situations, so hopefully that translates all over. It doesn't matter what country you come from. It's not like there's political statements in it that you wouldn't understand. This is all about people being people and messing up. So hopefully that it doesn't matter where you come from. And I think the British humour has been learnt very well by American audiences now.
Thanks so much for coming by. This was really wonderful.